Hey everyone, Fortune Firm here, and this is a bonus video. We weren't planning on this, but because Dolf is such a great guest and has such a great personality, the great Dolf De Roos, Dolf De Roos, sorry,
I respond to all variations,
okay,
so it's all good.
it's all right.
You should hear me at Starbucks. Dolf.
When they're reading the cup?
Yeah,
Oh, great.
get it wrong.
Anyway, we're going to do something we've never done before. We hope this works. Because the crew here loves Dolf's personality so much, they demanded we do another video where they get to ask some questions. And so we are just going to find out more about Dolf. We're going to be asking questions. We've got a crew and some employees here that makes up a live studio audience. They want to know more about Dolf. So we're going to give them an opportunity off camera to ask the questions, and then we're going to hear from the great Dolf De Roos. So, Crystal, start us off. We're live, so you don't have a second. What is something spontaneous that you have done?
I have jumped off a mountain on a whim. Now,
You
fortunately,
you can't leave it at that.
no, fortunately, I did have the backup of a parachute, but it was one of those things where you get there and you see people are doing this, and I thought I should give that a go.
Hey, I'm
I've-
wearing a parachute
I've
anyway.
never jumped off a mountain.
So this, what do they call that? What is it? Something?
Parapenting.
Para what?
Penting.
Parapenting?
Yes.
That's different than base jumping?
Oh yeah, no, that's completely different. Yeah, I've never done that yet.
So
maybe I
is
should.
this
I'll
like
do
a
it if
cliff?
you do it. Yeah, it's
Or
a
is it
very
like
steep
a-
mountain.
Okay.
It's pretty steep.
And so
yeah.
you jump off,
Yeah. You
and
sort
then
of
you
run.
pull the cord.
Well, it flares up behind you, and then
Oh,
you
okay.
launch yourself. But there's a moment when you do it for the first. Everything you do for the first time is a bit like, wow, how's this going to end? Even if you see other people do it successfully, and not too many of them die.
What country was that in?
That was in New Zealand. New Zealand's the adventure capital of the world.
So
We
you jumped off a
invented-
mountain, and then you're like, oh, there's Hobbit Town.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay, that's awesome. Great question. Colby, you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay. Our audience, ask me a question.
You've been in 27 places to teach. Which one was your favorite?
So of the 27 countries you've taught in, which one was your favorite? And then I'll add to it, why?
Well, they're all my favorites. I've got this weird personality where when I'm in a place, I think, wow, this place is so cool. I love it here. I could live here. So I think we need a bit more refinement to the question, like, which is your favorite from a food perspective? I love Thai food, so Thailand is high up on the list, but I'm also a big Francophile. I love French food. The food there is unbelievable. When it comes to the spontaneity of the people, I wouldn't call the French all that spontaneous, certainly not the Germans. But in many countries there, like Australia is a great place where there's just funky, fun people. And so it really depends. Scenery, oh my gosh, it depends what you're after. If you want vicious animals, Australia, I was saying this before to someone, of the world's 20 most poisonous snakes, 19 of them are in Australia. Whereas across the Tasman, its nearest neighbor, there is not one predator that can kill you. In other words, you can sleep in a 1,000,000-star motel, which means nothing above your head, and you've got the Milky Way there, which is about 1,000 times as dense as the sky in the northern hemisphere, and there's nothing that can kill you. No pumas, no tigers, no poisonous snakes, nothing. It's kind of a nice feeling.
Wow. Which constellations do you like better, the northern hemisphere ones or the southern hemisphere?
Well, they rise and fall in both hemispheres, but I've got to say the night sky in the southern hemisphere is unbelievable. It is so bright, it's like you can almost read a book under it. Your eyes adjust to it after a while, of course, and it's something worth seeing.
Okay, here's my best northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere question.
Okay.
When you flush the toilet, would you rather that it flush clockwise or counterclockwise?
Well, you're asking an engineer. It is a fallacy that water flows in different
Oh, that's
directions
terrible.
depending on the
That was
hemisphere.
my best question.
There is that effect. It's called the Aureolus effect, where if you have an anticyclone, which is a depression, it rotates one way in the southern hemisphere versus the other way in the northern. But that effect is so small in a sink, so that when you put your hand in to pull the plug, the motion that your hand imparts to the water is 1,000,000 times greater in affecting the direction of flow.
So it's the design of the toilet that's going to...
It's a design that will affect it way more.
And is it counterclockwise or anti-clockwise in New Zealand?
We have a lot of different words from here in the States. We walk on a footpath, not a sidewalk. We get an evaluator, not an appraiser. And just little differences like that, but we all speak English. It just gets a bit confusing.
Sure, okay.
So both work, counterclockwise, anti-clockwise.
Any other question?
Yeah, I've got one. A lot of our audience, they are looking for materials to read, something that inspires them. If there was an author or a book that inspires you, what would that be?
So let me
my
repeat it
gosh.
so everyone can hear it.
Okay.
if there's a book or author that inspires you that you could recommend that the audience members might also be inspired, what would it be?
All right. Great question, because I am an avid reader. I believe that I am where I am today because I've read a lot. I always say readers are leaders, or he who does not read has no advantage over he who cannot read. In other words, if you don't read, you're depriving yourself of something immense. So there are many great authors. I think we should read every day. I've usually got 5 books going at a time. Right now, one of my favorite authors is a Lebanese guy. He's French, but he writes in English, called Nassim Taleb. He wrote books like Fooled by Randomness. His more recent book is called The Black Swan, not to be confused with the movie. And the Black Swan is this concept that until 1886 or thereabouts, the entire world knew that all swans were white. It's just a genetic reality fact of nature, swans white. And then these 2 explorers in the, what do you call it, not the backwaters, but the outback of Australia, came across these black swans. And suddenly the academic world had to assimilate this notion that swans could be black as well.
Defied all conventional wisdom and knowledge.
Right. So he used this term, a black swan, to define something that you don't expect to happen that ends up happening. Or conversely, it could be something that you expect to happen. Of course it does. The sun rises every morning. And then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. And his notion in this book, and he explains it beautifully, although it's quite a heavy-duty book, is that you shouldn't try to avoid black swans. You should learn to depend on them, because black swans happen in the world. Look at this pandemic we're currently facing. Why are we wearing masks, by the way? I know we don't have to. Why is it? Because no one expected it. A few people, Bill Gates wrote about it. He did a TED Talk, I think, in 2015, warning about it. Other people, but no one expected it. No one made any preparation. So a black swan is an event, like a pandemic, that you don't expect to happen, that's going to happen anyway. So it really forces you to think differently. Another author I like is the Edward de Bono, the lateral thinking guy. He wrote 59 books or something. Great to get your mind thinking differently. It's one of those things, it's like many things in life, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same with the brain. Your brain is a muscle that needs to be exercised. And people who come home and see what's on TV and watch a soap, which is really a scriptwriter's fantasy, enticing you to keep watching to find out who slept with whom, so that you watch the ads, because that's how those TV companies get paid. What a waste of time. What benefit do you have today, Zach, from a soap you watched 3 years ago? 0. But you read a book, you spend $30 in 3 hours reading a book, and it can add $10,000 to your income every month for the rest of your life. Why would you not do it? I have a TV, but I don't subscribe. No cable, no dish, nothing like that. It's a waste of time in general. There are a few good things.
What a great question, and an even better answer. So we have time for one more question. Do we have? Oh, John, you have a question?
I have a question. Who's the most famous person that calls you when they need advice?
So who's the most famous person who calls you when they need advice?
The President of France.
The President of France. Do you speak French?
Mm-hmm.
So he asks for advice in his native language, and you give him advice in his native language.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Do you have a quick story about that?
Not that I'm at liberty to share.
Of course, yes. That's the best answer. Okay, so in wrapping this up, once again, I want to thank you. You've been awesome. You've been the best guest we've ever had.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to be careful saying that, because the person who just asked that question has been a previous guest. But anyway, we really enjoyed having you. To say thank you, I want to give you a gift, okay? So I'm not a New York Times bestseller yet, cross my fingers. I am an Amazon bestseller.
Oh, cool.
And readers are leaders. So
Yes.
I want you to read this book, or at least take it.
That's great advice.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to take it, because I noticed that this is a bull here, and it was propping the bull up, which means it's under the bull, which means whatever the bull drops would have otherwise contaminated this. So I'm saving it
Maybe you
from
could
being
put better
contaminated.
use to it
Yes.
than we did.
I will read it with relish. Thank you
Very
so much.
good.
I
And
appreciate
if you don't like what's in it, it props kids up at the dinner table. It can keep a door open. This book has lots of very valuable uses. So
Okay,
anyway, but
cool.
thank
It can
you very
start
much
a
for doing
fire,
that.
for instance.
Yeah,
and
that's
it
right.
can annoy neighbors.
Yes.
And yes, no, okay.
Yes, very good. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for being with us. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Please like, subscribe, share. If you like what you saw, show other people Dolf's personality, his advice, and they'll learn just like you do. And just like every other time, may your fortune be with you always.